Tell us your bodybuilding story specific to this image. Why did you do this? What does it take to really transform your body?
So this infamous triplicate image actually stemmed from a horrific injury I had, where it starts with me in a sort of perma-bulk status, where I had chocolate milked and peanut butter sandwiched my way up to about 260 or so, very strong, and suffered a catastrophic injury that came at a delay actually versus an acute injury. I woke up in the middle of the night with an intense immune response. I had a very high fever and it felt like a bomb had gone off in my perineum. And if you want to know where the perineum exists, then just try to kiss yourself in the butt and you'll find it. Basically, it felt like after the bulk of the pain went away, which essentially again, it felt like a bomb had gone off between my belly button and my knee essentially. When a lot of that sort of vague, I guess, diffuse pain went away, it felt like I had a fish hook between my legs, yanking all the time. That if I put pressure on it, the fish hook went in deeper. And if I took pressure off of it, the weight of my leg actually made it feel like the fish hook went in deeper.
That hurts.
And I survived the night, kind of, and I went to ride my bicycle to the lab because what else do you do when you have a catastrophic injury in your lower body or in your pelvis? And I managed to creep the way there. I think I actually walked the bicycle and used the bicycle like a walker, a couple of miles. That felt amazing. In any case, someone at the laboratory decided to take me to the hospital, and it turned out I had a very interesting situation where I had some sort of blood infection from who knows what, and I tore a muscle somewhere doing something, and then I got sick at the same time. So I got some sort of infection and I got rhabdo at the same time, and that just kind of felt like a nuke went off in my body. Now, fast forwarding, I ended up going into this tremendous fat loss phase because I essentially had to learn how to walk again. And I realized that weighing 260 pounds made that more difficult. So I made a concerted effort to, okay, now I have an opportunity to start training over again and do everything from scratch correctly. So before, I just had a sort of ape man strong, sort of eat everything in sight, try and lift as much weight as I can and see what happens, and I did, and it worked until it stopped. And this catastrophic injury then put me into the position of, well, I can start over and do it right, and by learning how to walk again, I could then work on squat mechanics, deadlift mechanics, various ways of just moving my body in general, and it helped sort of propel me into weighing less. And since I had the knowledge of how to weigh less properly, it ended up turning into a very useful physical transformation for me as well.
What were the reactions of the people around you while you were going through this transformation?
I mostly covered my body, and so I had limited reactions from the people that knew me until they started to see my face getting sunk in. And I also had a beard, which also makes it difficult to see. My grandmother actually noticed first, because what else do grandmothers do? She knew, she asked me if something went wrong, that I started getting very sluggish and feeling very bad because I ate too little and I moved too much. And so a lot of the comments that I got actually had to do with somebody seeing my physical change, which honestly, it happened slow enough for my frame that like people noticed that I started looking trim, and it went from people asking me how much I bench pressed to if I fought in the UFC or whatever. It changed the questions that people asked me because I looked like a different type of athlete. I went from looking like I worked on a farm to, I guess, looking like I fought or CrossFit or whatever. So I got different sorts of questions. The reactions started changing when I had the obviously lower body fat, the sunken in face, the trudging around, very tired, and also lower body weight. All those things combined, like somebody in the laboratory, because they look at things a little bit different. They saw the way that I walked around, my energy levels and my weight loss, and asked if I had gotten sick, but like sick. So I said no, and that actually helped me to like, okay, maybe it would help if I ate a little bit more. So that actually happened in public. In the gym, where like you train in the CrossFit gym and you know people train naked basically, I got positive responses from people because the people there saw me every day, and I got a lot of support from the people that I trained with and trained around. So the reactions I got had less to do with shock because the people that did know that I did it on purpose saw me every day, and they saw the progression day to day, and they told me it felt motivating for them, and then we ended up doing a lot of stuff together because of it.
Would you have changed anything about the way that you did that transformation knowing what you know now?
Would I have changed anything about what I did knowing what I know now? I wonder. I wonder, like, what do people say? Money don't buy happiness. Well, I found out for myself. I would change the first half and leave the second half. So I lost the initial amount of weight too fast and I gained it back properly. So I would probably have kept my calories and weight training the same and actually cut back on the amount of cardiovascular activity I did. So I already got a fair amount of cardiovascular activity every week for health reasons because I rode the bicycle to the laboratory where I worked. And I think for weight training or cardiovascular activity, the amount of calories that I ate per day probably suited my purposes adequately, maybe losing weight a little bit faster. Although I think I probably would have sidelined the extra cardiovascular activity, and then that would have probably progressed my weight training a little bit more. When I went to put weight back on, I added calories back very slow, which I still like to do now, and I would do that again absolutely. I might add calories back a little bit faster, but really it worked very well. On average, I actually added back like 40 calories per week, which arbitrarily turned into like 10 carbohydrates per week I added back, very small. Although, okay, over 10 weeks, I added 100 carbohydrates back, and so I had basically a whole extra meal every day after a couple of months. And that very slow amount, when that slow raise every week, made it so that when I gained weight back, that weight distributed a little more evenly and allowed me to tweak things here or there, which ultimately I found out mattered less than I thought. And now we ended up here with the 90-10 of just get enough calories and protein, and the rest ends up taking care of itself in the long term.
If this was helpful, you probably want to know how fast you can get jacked. So watch this video next.